Smile to people because when you hurt people, they will revenge and then you fight again, never stop. So you just smile, make people happy, then we'll stop war.
Before martial arts films became the pulse-pounding spectacles we know today, they looked very different. Slower, flashier, and far less grounded in reality. But something changed, or rather, someone. One man stepped onto the screen and didn't just fight. He exploded. His presence was sharp, his strikes faster than film could follow, and his philosophy challenged everything that came before him. He didn't just act, he redefined an entire genre. But how did one fighter turn the world of cinema upside down? And what exactly did he do that no one saw coming? Let's step into the frame, if we can keep up. Bruce Lee's cinematic revolution. Before Bruce Lee arrived on the scene, martial arts in cinema were often portrayed as slow, exaggerated, and overly theatrical. Fight scenes relied more on stylized choreography than on real technique, making them feel more like dance routines than actual combat. Movements were often wide and dramatic, designed to entertain but lacking the realism of true martial arts. These portrayals leaned heavily into mysticism or tradition, without showcasing the real physicality, speed, or intensity involved in a real fight. Martial artists were typically side characters, and their skills were depicted in a way that was more ornamental than impactful. Bruce Lee completely revolutionized this standard. When he entered the film world in the early 1970s, his approach to action was unlike anything audiences had ever seen. Films like The Big Boss, 1971, Fist of Fury, 1972, and especially Enter the Dragon, 1973, introduced an explosive, fast-paced fighting style that emphasized real combat principles, direct strikes, rapid movement, and devastating power. Bruce made martial arts cinematic without losing authenticity. His Jeet Kune Do philosophy, based on adaptability and eliminating unnecessary movements, translated beautifully on screen, making every punch and kick feel immediate and visceral. What was probably most groundbreaking regarding Bruce Lee's influence was his relationship with the camera. Unlike the actors who slowed down for dramatic effect, the intensity of speed from Bruce brought filmmakers to a point where he was asked to slow down his movements while filming. Sometimes his punches were so fast that they appeared as blurs on the film. This was especially apparent with the 24 frames OSD, as at that time. So, much of the time, directors needed to shoot in slow motion for audiences to follow their technique. That redefinition of realism basically transformed the action genre and set a new standard for how martial arts were shot. The ripple effects of Bruce Lee's revolution were profound. Martial arts, after the death of this icon in 1973, became an indomitable force in the global cinematic theater. Legends that inspired his legacy, from Matrix-style story scripting to the depiction of action heroes, Jackie Chan, Donnie Yen, and Jet Li, who popularized their versions of martial arts, can definitely connect back to Bruce. Most importantly, Bruce Lee transformed martial arts from being a cultural niche into a symbol of human discipline, strength, and self-expression. He didn't just popularize martial arts films, he made them powerful. But Bruce's impact wasn't just on the screen. It could be felt in a single, shocking move. The one-inch punch. Bruce Lee's one-inch punch is perhaps the most iconic martial arts technique ever demonstrated, known for its ability to generate massive power from minimal distance. As the name suggests, the move involves delivering a devastating punch with only 1 inch of space between the fist and the target. While it appears almost magical to the untrained eye, the move is rooted in precise technique, explosive energy transfer, and mastery of biomechanics. Bruce first gained widespread attention for the one-inch punch in the early 1960s, notably at the 1964 Long Beach International Karate Championships, where he stunned audiences by launching opponents backward with seemingly no wind-up. The origins of the one-inch punch lie in Bruce's early training in Wing Chun under Grandmaster Ip Man. Wing Chun emphasizes close-quarter combat and efficient, direct strikes, making it the perfect foundation for a technique like the one-inch punch. Bruce refined the move further by combining Wing Chun principles with his personal study of Western boxing, physics, and body mechanics. He experimented with stances, hip rotation, and muscle alignment to maximize impact from minimal distance. The technique demands not just physical strength, but extreme coordination, timing, and explosive muscular control, skills Bruce honed through intense daily training. What really sets apart the famous one-inch punch is why it is so renowned, not only because it packs a punch, but also in what it symbolizes. It is at the heart of Bruce Lee's dogma that effectiveness is superior to traditions, and less can also be more powerful than being complicated. The punch really embodied Lee's whole martial conceptual framework in casting aside extraneous movements to achieve a movement that could remain the most direct and efficiently effective. Bruce, according to his student James DeMille, never invented that punch from scratch. He developed a standard technique from Wing Chun into something faster, sharper, and more impactful than anything ever seen in the past. Bruce demonstrated this move 1,000,000 times, once even knocking a man sitting in a chair 16 feet away. That's how much force his compact body could generate. The one-inch punch, decades after Bruce's death, is still a source of fascination among martial artists, scientists, and fans alike. Few outside of Bruce himself have ever achieved the same level of effectiveness or fluid execution in this technique. Its biomechanics have been studied in laboratories and documented in films, all of which serve to enhance the glory of the one-inch punch as a symbol of Bruce Lee's genius. Yet, beyond its combat skill, the one-inch punch stands as a very bold statement that illustrates how discipline, understanding of the way the human body works, and mental focus can come together to create something phenomenal. One of Bruce Lee's immortal legacies in the chronicles of martial arts. Training like a dragon. Bruce Lee's legendary martial arts abilities didn't come solely from natural talent. His physical condition was the result of a grueling, relentless training regimen that pushed the boundaries of human potential. Lee believed that to be the best, he had to train harder than anyone else, and he lived by that philosophy daily. According to his widow, Linda Lee, Bruce was constantly working out. Even during downtime, he'd drop into push-ups or practice his kicks. His approach to fitness was holistic, blending strength, speed, endurance, flexibility, and explosive power. He trained not just for aesthetics or strength, but for function, efficiency, and real-world combat performance. At the core of Bruce Lee's training was his obsession with core strength. He believed the abdominal region was essential to almost every movement in martial arts, and he developed advanced exercises to strengthen it, none more famous than the Dragon Flag. This core workout, later popularized by Sylvester Stallone in Rocky IV, involves holding the entire body in a straight line with only the shoulders touching a bench, while lifting and lowering the legs under complete control. Lee could execute this move with exceptional precision and control, highlighting his unmatched core stability and muscular coordination. Put in place all these for sounds, including beyond the Dragon Flag shoulder press, Bruce Lee fulfilled strength acts that would stun all of the seasoned athletes. He can reportedly do more than 1,500 push-ups in one go, such as 400 push-ups with a single hand, 200 with 2 fingers, and at least 100 using only his thumb. Even his pull-up strength would drop jaws. His ability to perform dozens of one-arm pull-ups, a feat which in itself is hardly achieved by most elite athletes. He even had reinforced punching bags because his strikes could destroy ordinary punching bags. These were not party tricks, but evidence of his explosive power, control, and technical mastery. His scientific insight into training is what really distinguishes Bruce Lee. He worked on kinesiology and anatomy, nutrition, and constantly changes approaches to improving performance. While most fighters at the time feared reducing speed with bulking by lifting weights, isometric exercises, and aerobic conditioning as an adjunct did not occur to him as an early martial artist. Bruce exercised his body as much in a laboratory mode as he might be used as live ammunition. And while continued fitness is generally misunderstood as not looking like a bodybuilder, it is never to be stopped. Today, his training methods would continue to inspire athletes all over the world, ranging from martial artists to fitness aficionados, proving that discipline was legendary as much as on par with his skills in combat. Too fast for the frame. Bruce Lee's extraordinary speed wasn't just impressive in person. It was so fast that it literally broke the limits of 1960s and 1970s film technology. At a time when most cameras operated at 24 frames per second, Lee's movements were simply too quick to be captured clearly. Directors and editors quickly realized that in fight scenes, Bruce appeared almost motionless or blurry on screen because the camera couldn't register the full arc of his punches and kicks. His strikes were so fast that audiences couldn't follow what was happening without technical adjustments. This problem became especially evident during the filming of The Green Hornet, where his movements had to be slowed down so viewers could actually see them. One of the most cited examples of Lee's blinding speed was his ability to deliver up to 9 punches in a single second. His kickoff speed, how quickly he could launch a kick, was around 0.06 of a second, faster than most cameras could properly capture at the time. This wasn't just a marvel to martial artists. Even seasoned directors and cinematographers were stunned. They had to rethink how to choreograph and film his fight scenes, sometimes asking Lee to deliberately slow down his techniques so the camera could track his motion. Ironically, in a medium built on action and visual impact, Bruce was too advanced for the tools of his time. From behind the scenes, producers claimed that even when they went through the footage, Bruce's co-stars always looked enthusiastic about getting hit, something that the audience is never privy to. It then completely gave the impression that opponents simply crumpled, which was false, for Ahmed's fists were moving faster than the film could register. Hence, many sequences had to be reshot at a slower speed, and in some rare cases, directors would have to shoot at slow motion just to register their actions for the audience. But all these workarounds, speed was a signature part of his screen talent, almost saving it into a superhuman quality, making him loom beyond all the other action stars. Nowadays, it is not a tough task to shoot the speed of Bruce Lee with the help of digital cameras that are able in ultra-high frame rates. But during his time, he was a pioneer in pushing the very limits of film equipment, forcing Hollywood to innovate. His unmatched quickness awed not only the martial arts practitioners and fans, but also changed the way fight scenes get filmed. Bruce Lee was not just too fast for his opponents. He was too fast even for the very medium that was meant to showcase him. Such a rare breed of physicality and disruption in cinema becomes dominant in keeping him among the legends in the timeless zone. Reflexes and sleight of hand. Bruce Lee's speed was so astonishing that it often seemed more like magic than martial arts. One of the most legendary demonstrations of his lightning-fast reflexes involved a simple coin trick that left spectators in disbelief. He would ask someone to hold out their palm with a coin resting on it, then instruct them to close their hand as soon as they saw him move. Before they could react, Bruce would snatch the coin and, in some versions of the trick, replace it with another coin before their fingers could shut. This was not sleight of hand in the traditional magician's sense. It was a raw display of pure human speed, reaction time, and precision. This trick became a symbol of Bruce Lee's near-mythical abilities and added to his growing legend as not just a fighter, but a man with almost superhuman control over his body. His reflexes weren't just fast. They were honed through years of intense, deliberate training. Bruce routinely worked on his reaction time using a variety of methods, from hand-eye coordination drills to speed training. And this coin trick was one way he demonstrated the practical results of that effort. It wasn't staged or pre-planned, it was real, and it stunned anyone who tried to challenge his timing. Apart from this, the story about Bruce Lee, the great contributor towards his mystique, a figure who has almost delved into the realm of legend from reality. Fans and martial arts enthusiasts equally believed that someone could travel faster than the average person's perception. While strikes were known from films like Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon, these off-screen feats endowed him with a mythic quality. The idea that Bruce Lee wasn't an actor or athlete, but rather a phenomenon, was further strengthened. One who worked on a level some few could appreciate, much less match. Even decades after his demise, word about Bruce Lee's lightning reflexes travels, sometimes bordering on preposterous. However, unlike exaggerated myths, multiple feats were attested to by trusted witnesses, such as Bruce's students and film cohorts. Such moments, like that of the coin trick, elevated Bruce far above a mere martial arts master. It became a symbol of what the human body and mind can achieve when driven to extremes. This way, Bruce Lee is more than just a martial artist and a philosopher. He is something of a moving magician, and his very existence is a paradox that constitutes a legacy that still stretches human imagination. What came next wasn't just physical. It changed the face of an entire industry, redefining heroes. Bruce Lee's influence on Hollywood went far beyond his martial arts prowess. He shattered racial and cultural barriers that had long kept Asian actors in the background. Before Lee, Asian characters in Western films were often portrayed through offensive stereotypes or relegated to minor roles. Bruce challenged this by insisting on authenticity and respect for Chinese culture. His global breakthrough came with Enter the Dragon, 1973, which marked the first time a Chinese martial artist led a Hollywood production aimed at international audiences. Although he passed away before the film's release, its massive success proved that Asian actors could carry a blockbuster and command global attention. Bruce Lee's fight for visibility in Hollywood was not just about screen time, it was about reshaping the narrative. He refused to play the submissive, one-dimensional roles that Asian actors were typically offered and demanded to be seen as a lead, a thinker, and a fighter. His roles were bold, his characters powerful, and his presence electrifying. Lee became a symbol of self-respect, identity, and resistance against discrimination, inspiring generations of actors and filmmakers to push beyond the boundaries set by a narrow-minded industry. By showing that martial arts could be more than an exotic spectacle, that it could carry emotional depth, philosophy, and cinematic weight, Bruce redefined the action genre itself. More than 2 decades after Jet Li entered the fray of martial arts stars emerging to tackle the Western film market, much had changed by the late 90s. That was perhaps in no small measure down to Bruce Lee's groundbreaking work. Jet's big Hollywood moment came with Lethal Weapon 4, 1998, and played opposite a silent, deadly antagonist. While leaning slightly into the silent villain character, Jet's performance stunned audiences with his speed, precision, and intensity. Unlike most Asian characters in previous films, who were invariably mystical or comic relief figures, this particular character was physically dominant and fearsome, a sign that Asian martial artists were finally being taken seriously by Hollywood as contenders in the action arena. Jet Li's starring role in the 2000 film Romeo Must Die represented an important milestone in that he was no longer just the villain. He was the hero, the romantic lead, and the emotional standard of the film. Paired with singer Aaliyah, the film combined martial arts with hip-hop culture and subverted the usual racist and cultural stereotypes in Hollywood casting. Jet's awesome achievement in this role became a direct continuation of Bruce Lee's legacy. While Bruce opened the door, Jet Li entered with dignity and grace, demonstrating that Asian actors could lead in Western films, taking on roles that are diverse and multidimensional, and that audiences were ready to embrace them. In the Shadow of the Dragon. Jet Li's rise to international stardom began with his breakout role in the 1982 film Shaolin Temple, which introduced audiences to authentic wushu and real Shaolin Kung Fu. His precise, fluid movements and calm, disciplined demeanor captivated viewers across China and eventually the world. Trained from a young age as a national wushu champion, Jet Li brought a polished, performance-based martial arts style to cinema, one that emphasized elegance, balance, and control. Unlike Bruce Lee, whose roots were in street fighting and raw power, Jet's artistry was grounded in formal competition and spiritual discipline. Throughout the 1990s, Jet Li became a dominant figure in Chinese martial arts cinema, particularly with his role as Wang Fei Hung in Once Upon a Time in China. These films showcased not just his martial arts abilities, but also his portrayal of traditional Chinese virtues, honor, restraint, and heroism. While Bruce Lee often played lone fighters confronting oppression head-on, Jet Li's characters were frequently cultural icons or historical figures who fought to protect values and communities. His wire-assisted stunts and acrobatic flair added a modern cinematic element that distinguished his style from Bruce's grounded, explosive action. Jet Li followed the Hollywood path, which Bruce Lee had almost tried to carve out 30 years before. All along, Bruce had fought against racial stereotyping in Hollywood, proving with Enter the Dragon that an Asian action hero could lead a successful global film off the old. By the time Jet landed in Hollywood in the late 1990s, the ground was already set. In his first big Hollywood role, Lethal Weapon 4, 1998, he played a quiet but deadly villain, and the sheer speed and precision he brought to that role stole every scene. The audiences were just stunned by such a presence, only because the doors were opened by Bruce. In 2000, Jet Li starred in Romeo Must Die with Aaliyah, a pioneering move that placed Li on the map as the first Chinese martial artist to headline a mainstream American action romance film, something his predecessor, Bruce Lee, once aspired to accomplish before his unfortunate passing. Although Jet's path was his own, he never shied away from acknowledging that Bruce's sacrifices and breakthroughs made such an opportunity available. Jet Li's success in the West was not a work of his own talent. Instead, it was a pathway laid out before him in the footsteps of Bruce Lee, attesting to the fact that Asian martial artists were indeed not only part of, but also capable of leading the global stage. A Tale of Two Legends. Jet Li and Bruce Lee are two of the most iconic figures in martial arts cinema, yet their styles and screen personas could not be more different. Bruce Lee's fighting approach was born from street encounters and philosophical rebellion. He rejected traditional martial arts forms, favoring practicality and adaptability, which led him to develop Jeet Kune Do, a hybrid combat style focused on speed, efficiency, and minimal wasted movement. His punches were explosive, his kicks direct, and his fight scenes in films like Enter the Dragon conveyed raw, brutal realism. Bruce's presence on screen was aggressive and dominant, representing power unfiltered. In contrast, Jet Li's foundation was built on the discipline of wushu, a highly structured and aesthetic form of Chinese martial arts. Beginning his training at a young age, Jet became a national wushu champion in China before entering the film industry. His style emphasizes grace, fluidity, and precision. His movements are almost balletic in nature. Unlike Bruce's grounded close-quarter combat, Jet's performances often include acrobatic sequences and wire work, as seen in films like Once Upon a Time in China. His characters often embody honor, tradition, and inner peace, portraying not just a warrior, but a philosopher in motion. Their celluloid personalities thus mirror these central disagreements. Bruce Lee was usually depicted as a solitary warrior, fighting against injustices with conviction and defiance. He was fearless in confronting authority on screen and in real life, using his films to speak against racial barriers and rigid ideologies of martial arts. Jet Li, on the contrary, typically embodied historical or mythical heroes of discipline, morality, and cultural heritage. In his portrayals of Wong Fei Hung or a Shaolin monk, Jet's characters imparted a sense of spiritual fortitude, if not necessarily prowess in combat, all the more so in later films like Fearless, which put an emphasis on peace instead of violence. Both these men shared with each other a greater ambition: to globalize martial arts as a cinematic language. Bruce Lee broke such cultural walls and redefined how martial artists could be portrayed in Western media, while Jet Li had classical Chinese martial philosophies expressed through his elegant and expressive fighting style to an international audience. One was a revolutionary firebrand, whereas another was a disciplined ambassador. But together, they have done a huge deal in reshaping martial arts cinema forever. Philosophy and personality. Bruce Lee and Jet Li, while both legendary martial artists and global icons, differ significantly in their personal philosophies and public personas. Bruce Lee was a fierce individualist and a vocal critic of rigid tradition. He wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, whether in martial arts or Hollywood. Through interviews and writings, Bruce openly discussed his belief that martial arts should evolve and adapt, famously saying, "Be water, my friend." He developed Jeet Kune Do as a rejection of dogma, favoring efficiency, directness, and freedom over classical forms. His on-screen characters reflected this spirit, rebellious, confident, and unyielding in the face of injustice. Jet Li, on the other hand, embodies a more introspective and spiritual approach. A devout Buddhist, Jet believes that martial arts are as much about inner peace and self-discipline as they are about physical skill. Unlike Bruce, who often used his public platform to push boundaries and confront issues head-on, Jet has consistently maintained a humble and reserved demeanor. He rarely speaks about his own philosophy in grand terms, preferring to let his film roles and quiet actions reflect his values. In movies like Fearless, Jet plays characters who evolve from violent fighters into wise warriors, mirroring his own belief that true strength lies in restraint and wisdom. This contrast is also evident in how they approached fame and public life. Bruce Lee relished the opportunity to explain his views on martial arts, identity, and philosophy, often appearing in interviews to articulate his ideas with clarity and passion. His charisma and sharp intellect made him not just a martial artist, but a cultural thinker. Jet Li, while no less intelligent, has often avoided the limelight outside of his work. Even when asked about Bruce Lee, Jet speaks with admiration, but without fanfare, emphasizing gratitude and respect over comparison or competition. Both these men shared with each other a greater ambition: to globalize martial arts as a cinematic language. Bruce Lee broke such cultural walls and redefined how martial artists could be portrayed in Western media, while Jet Li had classical Chinese martial philosophies expressed through his elegant and expressive fighting style to an international audience. One was a revolutionary firebrand, whereas another was a disciplined ambassador, but together they have done a huge deal in reshaping martial arts cinema forever. Until recently, one voice had been missing from the conversation. Not anymore. Jet Li breaks his silence. For decades, Jet Li remained notably silent whenever fans and media compared him to Bruce Lee, a man considered the father of modern martial arts cinema. While debates about their skills and legacies circulated widely online and in martial arts communities, Jet Li refrained from engaging in the conversation until now. In a rare and candid moment, Jet Li finally spoke about Bruce Lee's impact on martial arts and cinema, and his words left fans stunned. He openly acknowledged Bruce not just as a martial artist, but as a trailblazer who fundamentally transformed the way martial arts were viewed around the world. Jet Li revealed that Bruce Lee created something unique, something he refers to as the Bruce Lee style, a powerful fusion of different disciplines, philosophies, and raw physicality. He put all the bad things together, made it into his own style, Jet Li said, referencing Bruce's ability to absorb techniques from various martial arts and combine them into what became Jeet Kune Do. For Jet, this was not simply a fighting style, but a philosophy that defied tradition and emphasized adaptability, speed, and practical combat efficiency, elements that made Bruce Lee's approach revolutionary and irreplicable. What made Jet Li's comments so striking was the humility in his tone. Despite having attained global fame and mastered the art of traditional Chinese wushu, Jet was honest enough to admit that Bruce Lee paved the way. He acknowledged that Bruce opened doors for his own career, notably in Hollywood. As Jet explained, it was nearly impossible for a Chinese martial artist to lead a Western film before Bruce Lee. Bruce changed that narrative forever. Jet's first big break came with Lethal Weapon 4, and later with Romeo Must Die, both set in a world that's already geared towards accepting Asian martial artists, because Bruce had fought and won that cultural battle decades ago. Lee also spoke admiringly of Bruce Lee's physique, calling him a force of nature. He elaborated that Bruce's punches were thrown so fast that directors would slow down the footage just to allow the audience to register the movement. There was no rivalry in Jet Li, just respect. Jet never copied Bruce because their martial cultures were fundamentally divergent. Bruce's was all about being direct and explosive, whereas Jet's wushu was about being fluid and controlled. Jet agrees, however, on one thing: their mutual goal to share with the world the beauty, discipline, and depth of Chinese martial arts. Yet for Jet Li, it has broadened the scope of these reflections to something that was perhaps beyond the transformation of views on martial artists as they become popularized in global cinema. Decades earlier, Asian actors were often assigned limited parts in stereotypical or secondary roles. However, Bruce Lee managed to create a dent against it. As film scholar Brian Hu once wrote, Bruce Lee wasn't just practicing martial arts, he was performing identity. This kind of layered stuff was understood by Jet Li, who himself, in contrast to the new representation, was in turn evolving during such a time. Silence never meant omission on Jet's part, just reverence. In speaking out, Jet not only honored the influence of Bruce Lee, but also joined that legacy, one in which martial arts on screen became vehicles for pride, personal philosophy, and global respect. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Bruce Lee's cinematic revolution, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories from martial arts history. Ready for more? Click on the next video on your screen. It's one you won't want to miss.